Anchors up, sells at full. Welcome to the Sloopcast. How are you doing today, Kyle?
Doing all right, Jared. Doing all right. How are you doing today?
Doing all right, Kyle. We have no time to screw around today. It's a new tradition. It's a good tradition. Chaos was busy.
Chaos was on fire. Chaos was on fire tonight with a lot of upsets over the weekend. Too many to count here, so let's just go ahead and jump right into it.
Was it 6 top 25 losses?
Well, I guess Jared's bringing it up.
We gotta count.
Lost. Missouri lost. Louisville lost. I'm just going one by one here. Alabama lost. Michigan lost. Tennessee lost. USC lost. UNLV lost. 7.
You also
almost 8. Almost 8.
Well, and
almost 8.
And let me point out, undefeated James Madison lost. Undefeated Rutgers lost.
Yep.
Undefeated UNLV lost. These teams weren't ranked, but they were undefeated. And
UNLV, I mentioned UNLV was ranked.
My bad.
That's fine.
Point is, and, because we have to place a group of 5 team, quote unquote, they're not my Gophers, but quote unquote, my Gophers won. But a lot of those teams, UNLV, James Madison, will affect our depth chart a lot because we do need a group of 5 team.
We do.
In the top 12.
We do. All right, let's pull up our rankings here, Jared.
Let's do that. But first, Collegiate Chaos. All 3 of us hit. See, when Chaos does its job, it makes our job a lot easier. Excuse me, Chaos Theory. Thank you, Austin. Pull up the Chaos Theory scoreboard. All 3 of us hit. Kyle and I got 16 points each. Esquire got 4 points. He mistakenly called the Missouri loss, except that Texas A&M was also top 25. They were literally 25th, literally tied for 25th. So he had to change his prediction at the last second. But it doesn't count on the scoreboard, but just to give Esquire some flowers, he did correctly call that upset.
He did, yeah. They
were 26th, and we all know it. I agree, Austin. But the scoreboard doesn't. I don't know what to tell you. All right, Kyle, now let's get to our tier list. Oh, wait a minute. Look who's still in the lead for the Sloop picks. That would be... Well, actually, it's the guest pickers are in the lead.
Guests are, yes.
But I'm beating you, which is honestly what matters.
That's fine. A
chaos rich week. A chaos rich week. Difficult sentence. Good for the Chaos Theory scoreboard. It wasn't terrible for the Sloop pick scoreboard, but Kyle and I each go 3 and 4. Esquire goes 4 and 3. Now do the over unders. If you put the results down in the chat, I will do that. Actually, Austin, let's handle that on Know Your Enemy, because this is our national focus show. We'll do that on Tuesday.
All right. Let's go pull up our ratings here. All right. Ohio State, Texas took care of business this weekend here. If you want to hear us talking about the Ohio State game, listen to our Monday episode here. Texas won, as I just mentioned. Georgia won as well. Not in a good way that we think that Georgia should have won. They struggled for most of the game against Auburn there, but I still think that they should be. Well, maybe we can have a discussion about that this year. But Alabama with a pretty bad loss. Let's not sugarcoat it. It's a pretty bad loss to a Vanderbilt team who lost to Georgia State.
Just for the record, Texas didn't play this week.
That's right. You're right. I was thinking of a. Yep, you're right.
That's okay.
So obviously Ohio State, Texas stays. Georgia? You think Georgia in our ratings here, Jared, stays in the S tier?
Listen, we already gave you some flowers, Esquire. You were robbed. I mean, do you want to talk about Georgia or are we just assuming we're dropping Bama? Is that an assumption?
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah, I agree, but I just think it feels like a.
And there's a lot more. I mean, yes, the big thing is that Alabama lost to Vanderbilt first time in 40 years. Definitely, that's the highlight of there. But there's a lot of stuff that's been coming up from that game that's throwing a lot of concern here. Like the leadership on the field there.
Yeah,
is.
I don't know who number 13 was, but he was throwing a total temper tantrum at the end of the game.
That's Malaki Moore, one of the captains for the defense.
Oh, that's one of the captains?
Mm-hmm. That's why I said this is a big issue here. So what's the coach DeBoer going to do here? Is he going to suspend him, like send a message here, or just let it slide? Like that's a big issue. Like it wasn't just he threw a temper tantrum one or two plays. Like he cost the team multiple personal fouls in that game just with his temper tantrum there. That's
at a certain point. That's
a lot more issues going on with this Alabama team.
At a certain point, that's the coach's fault for not pulling him. I mean, it's also the player's fault. I'm not defending the player. It's also the coach's fault is the better way of saying that. Mm-hmm. At a certain point, that's also the coach's fault. So yeah, we're dropping Bama down to A. That's a given.
Mm-hmm. Georgia. What about Georgia? They did beat Auburn 31-13 this weekend here, but don't let that score fool you. It was close. It was close. I mean, you could say the same thing with Ohio State and Iowa. The game was close at halftime too, so sure.
Yeah, but if you actually watch the Ohio State game, it wasn't all that close. Like Ohio State, I understand it was only 7 points at halftime. I get that. I understand that. But Ohio State was totally dominant. If you look at every other stat on the scoreboard, except for turnovers, which is partially how you get into that trouble. Anyway, we're not talking about Ohio State.
Yep.
Georgia.
So let's leave Georgia. Let's leave Georgia there for right now. Let's do this. Let's leave Georgia there. Let's look at the other teams to see if there's anybody else that we think that we can move up to S tier. So S tier is who we believe is going to be the favorites to win it all here. I still think Georgia has one of the best teams in terms of personnel in the country here that can win it all. So
purely talent wise, Georgia is in the top 3 with Ohio State and Texas. That's a given. I don't think they're putting it there. There's still issues there as far as execution and discipline and all the other things that need to happen to win a national title, focus and leadership and yada, yada, yada. And to answer your other question, Kyle, the only team I would consider moving up into S tier is Oregon.
Yep.
And one of the reasons why I think that's at least a conversation, we kind of dogged them for having a close game against Boise. Well, we now understand, maybe we didn't understand at the time, that Boise's actually really good. Can we officially put Michigan in M? We can have that conversation. Not right now, but we'll have that conversation. But Can we move? Georgia's the only team I even want to entertain a conversation of entering S tier. No one else, in my opinion, gets that conversation. Georgia S tier, Kyle. What do you think?
I think they're saying S tier.
Stay in? You mean move to S tier?
I think they stay in S tier.
No. Did I say Georgia?
Yes.
Oh, my bad. Oregon. Yeah, Georgia stays. Oregon. What do we do with Oregon? One of the reasons why we moved them down was that they, had a really bad game against Boise. They had a slow start to the year. They didn't look too crisp at the beginning of the year.
And they look dominant. They look dominant against Michigan State.
Yeah, they've looked better recently. And again, one of the games we dogged them for looking not great in was Boise. And I don't think we knew how good Boise was at the time.
Fair. I'm fine. I'm fine with this week putting Oregon in S tier here. But
I don't want to be fine with it. We're literally calling them a favorite to win it all. I think it should be. If your opinion is I'm fine with it, then we shouldn't do it. I think we should be pounding the table to move them into S tier. So, and I'm not, and you just say that you're. Does S tier need to be 4? No. S and A just needs to equal 12. So we can absolutely leave it at 3. If we had a mandate of 4 teams in S tier, I'd have moved Oregon up already. Wouldn't even be talking about it.
Yeah, no, you convinced me. Let's keep Oregon in A tier. Like, honestly, this game, similar to like the Ohio State Iowa game, this game should have been a lot higher scoring. A lot of turnovers in the red zone there by Oregon. A lot of them.
We're getting
definitely something to look out for this next weekend when Ohio State comes to visit. So I'm fine with Oregon staying where they're at.
Okay, we're getting some feedback in the chat that if Oregon doesn't deserve to be S tier, then Georgia doesn't either. And are they wrong? Do you want to beat the table to say that Georgia belongs in S tier?
I'm thinking. I know
they could win it all, but are they a favorite to win it all? Would you call Georgia a favorite to win it all this year?
Man, yes, they have that one loss to Alabama, and now that loss looks bad because of Alabama's loss to Vanderbilt here. But man, like that comeback, like Alabama, looking back a few weeks ago, Alabama, those first 4 drives just scored and just put Georgia on their heels. But you saw the way Georgia responded, came back, took the lead.
Yeah.
Could have won that at the end there. And we'd be talking completely different where, Georgia is the number 1 team. Georgia's the number 1 team. Look how they came back for 28 points and all that too. But you could see that there against Alabama. It's still a really good team. Being able to come back 28 down to take the lead there, they have what it takes to win it all. So
all right.
I feel comfortable keeping them in S tier. I understand where people are, where the chat here is saying that Oregon doesn't, then Georgia doesn't either. I understand your side of it, but I just look at what I've seen from the teams so far here. I
want to side with chat. I want to move it. They lost a game against a team that has major questions, defensively speaking, at least. I say we drop them.
All right. Well, I mean, it's 2 against 1, so.
All right. We're dropping Georgia.
We're here. We've made it here.
God, why we've given the chat too much power.
Oregon.
They're going to think they're people.
Oregon with staying in A tier, as we mentioned. Penn State.
Listen, Penn State, among some other teams this week, I'm looking at you, Miami, chose a really good week to look bad but not lose because they just aren't the topic of conversation. Penn State had a bad week. Miami had a worse week, but they won. And that just doesn't hit the meter this week because so many other teams lost.
Penn State has some big issues on this offense here.
I agree.
They struggle to run the ground under 3 yards per carry against UCLA, who's, newsflash, UCLA is not that good of a team. And
Chip Kelly chose to be an offensive coordinator instead of head coaching that football team.
And Drew Aller struggles throwing the ball deep. Like this is big. This is a big problem for Penn State.
I think his wide receivers struggle to get open. They have wide. I'm a Drew Aller apologist, sue me, but I think they have wide receiver issues in my opinion more than
Fair.
Drew Aller. Anyway,
Fair.
But yeah, not going to drop them by any means. Not this week. Very revealing about Julian Fleming. Yeah. Yep. James Franklin issues. You're not wrong.
All right. Next one here. Boise State took care of business against Utah State, 62-30.
Heisman leader in Gentry right now.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. He is a monster. Ashton. Like if he played all 4 quarters in every game here, he'd be like 1,300 yards. He's over 1,000 yards right now.
Yeah, I agree. BYU still our Big 12 favorite? Yes. I mean,
sure.
Yeah. They didn't play this week, I don't think, right?
I'm trying to look at the Big 12 here. Where's the Big 12? Here we go. So your undefeated Big 12 teams in conference is Texas Tech, BYU, Iowa State. Iowa State, you can make an argument for that. Colorado and West Virginia. Those are your 5 undefeated conference in conference teams.
We might need to have an Oklahoma State M tier conversation, by the way, but that's for later.
Oof. Yeah.
So
BYU, I agree. I think BYU is the favorite right now. I mean, Iowa State you could have a conversation with that, but to me, I think BYU at this point.
Yeah. And we do have Iowa State into B tier right now. We probably want to move some other Big 12 teams up into B tier, but that's a later conversation.
Notre Dame was on a bye.
Yeah.
They stay where they're at.
God, Texas, BYU, Notre Dame picked a great week to take off.
They did.
Miami, like Penn State, had a shitty week. Their week was shittier than Penn State's, acknowledged. That's a great week to have a shitty week, though, and survive.
Yes.
No one's going to talk about you. Everyone's talking about the teams that lost. We could have a conversation about replacing them with Clemson. But quite frankly, a 29-13 win over Florida State is surprisingly damaging.
Mm-hmm.
It's weird to say that about a game against Florida State, but it's like, dang, Clemson, you only beat Florida State 29-13.
Yeah.
But I think I want to leave it Miami instead of Clemson in A tier right now for our ACC representative.
Right. Then comes the big
Although we
question
still might move
here.
Clemson up because we may or may not be moving a couple other teams out of A tier.
But before we get to that, we're going to take our first ad break here. Check us out at thesloopcast.com, where you can find all of our links, lovely links here. Thank you, Jared. Such as our Discord.thesloopcast.com, as well as our YouTube page, youtube.thesloopcast.com, where you can support us, you can watch us. Also, merch.thesloopcast.com if you want to purchase some merchandise from us as well. You can check all of that stuff. So if you're not sure where this all of the if I can talk, just remember thesloopcast.com. It'll bring you to all the links that you need to from there. So yeah, anything else, Jared?
Here are those ad breaks now. And we're back. All right. So
this is the big thing here. This is the big question mark after. On our list here, we have Miami, then a bunch of question marks here. We moved Alabama down from S tier to A tier. With Alabama's loss to Vanderbilt, which do you want to get into that game? Or just leave it as is?
We don't have time to deep dive specific games, I don't think. I think, Kyle, we just did our first ad break and we're not even through A tier yet.
All right, fair enough. Missouri losing to Texas A&M 41-10. Now, I have some questions here. Okay. I know the AP and the coaches poll doesn't matter and all that there, but Alabama loses to Vanderbilt.
Sure.
Vanderbilt.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I know that they're the SEC whipping boy, but they actually are not a bad football team this year.
And they go down by 6. Okay. Unranked 2-loss Vanderbilt, and they go down 6 spots.
Okay.
Missouri loses to a ranked team, and they go down 12 spots. And this is their first loss. This is their first loss, by the way, too. And They go down 12 spots, all the way down to 21st.
Okay, but they did get clobbered. All right, so let me defend the AP.
Okay.
Missouri didn't lose. Missouri got run off the field. They got humiliated again. All right, they got humiliated.
Well, you can say Alabama got humiliated by
they lost by 5 points. They lost by 5 points.
By Vanderbilt.
I don't care.
That's a humiliation.
No.
That's humiliation on its own.
No, it's not. Vanderbilt is not a bad football team this year. Stop it. I know that Vanderbilt beating Alabama is a huge deal, but I think people are really exaggerating how big of a deal it is. They were 20-point favorites, which is a big upset, don't get me wrong. But people are throwing around comparisons to Appy State. Get the out of here. Yes, they lost to Georgia State. I know. But again, they were 20-point favorites. It's a bad loss. Don't get me wrong. I'm not defending Alabama here. But people are being really hyperbolic about how bad this upset was. Texas A&M beat Missouri by 31 points, and it could have been worse.
All right, fair. All right, Missouri moved down to. Do we move them all the way to C tier, or do you want to just put them into B tier because it is their one loss?
No, we can put them into B tier.
Okay. What about Tennessee?
Tennessee lost to Arkansas in Fayetteville. Mm-hmm. Name an SEC team that does not mark Vanderbilt as a W at the beginning of the season. Well, Bama did. How'd that turn out for him? Tennessee. Arkansas is a team that's played a bunch of teams close this year. Arkansas is not a bad football team. But, man, it kind of feels like Tennessee's offense got exposed bad in this football game.
It did.
Quarterback's not everything he's been hyped up to be. The offensive line is vulnerable.
All right, so let's do this. Let's move Tennessee far to the right. Let's move Tennessee all the way to the right of A tier, okay?
Okay. Now, how many teams do we have in total? 1, 2,
10,
3, 4, 5, 6,
11.
7, 8, 9, 10, not counting Tennessee.
Yeah,
10 not counting Tennessee. So the question is, who, first off, we have to move someone up to replace Missouri. And right now I'm saying we're keeping Tennessee in A tier because I'm struggling to find one team to replace Missouri, quite frankly.
I got 2 teams here, Jared.
You have 2 teams. Okay, I'm listening.
First one is Iowa State.
Okay.
Undefeated Iowa State goes up to A tier.
They beat Iowa.
Mm-hmm. Undefeated.
Who are their W's? Who are the Iowa State W's?
They just beat Baylor 43-21.
Okay.
They shut out Houston the week before.
Houston's pretty bad this year.
Yeah, and they dominated Arkansas State the week before that.
Arkansas State is pretty bad. No offense, but they haven't. I mean, they did beat Iowa. There's something to be said about that.
That's essentially Ohio State's schedule. I'll just say that.
Yeah, but let's compare how they beat Iowa.
Fair. But that's one team I have here.
Okay.
And the second team here.
Yeah.
They've really turned it around, and as much as I don't want to put them up in A tier, Clemson. I would say Clemson.
Man, if they had beat Florida State more convincingly, I'd have already moved them up, and we wouldn't even be having a conversation about it right now. Indiana doesn't have a defense. I think the second Indiana faces an actual... Here's the thing. I know Indiana has like one of the best scoring... Does Indiana have the best scoring team in the... Are they the best scoring team in the country right now? I thought I heard something like that this weekend. I like Illinois more than I like Indiana, quite frankly. Indiana is just playing like a Big 12 team. Indiana's... I know they're undefeated, and I know Illinois isn't. I acknowledge that as well. I think Illinois is a more complete football team than Indiana. So I'm just calling this right now. I'm leaving Tennessee. I think there's not a lot of teams to replace them with. And I hear you on Iowa State. I don't disagree. Ole Miss is still a good football team despite their loss last week. Illinois, I think, is a decent football team. Indiana's a lot of fun, but their defense is garbage. Esquire says Indiana's the third highest scoring offense, one ahead of us. There you go.
Oh, scoring.
Yeah, their offense is a ton of fun. They don't play any defense though. I mean, Northwestern scored 24 on them this weekend.
In terms of offensive touchdowns, they're number one.
Yeah, I think that's the stat I heard, that they had the most offensive touchdowns.
They have 38 offensive touchdowns. Miami has 37, followed by Ole Miss 34, Boise State 31, Alabama 31, Texas and Ohio State with 30.
Okay. I think we have to have a conversation about LSU, Clemson, potentially
Ole Miss,
I know that. Missouri, maybe Utah, maybe Oklahoma.
Not Missouri.
Excuse me. Did I say Missouri? I didn't mean to say Missouri.
BYU. We have BYU up there.
Yeah.
Utah.
I think Utah is what I meant to say instead of Missouri. They're right next to each other in our chart.
So I think the teams that we have, picking three of these teams: Tennessee, Ole Miss, Clemson, Iowa State, LSU, and Utah.
I'm going to say this. I don't want any of these teams to replace Tennessee.
I agree.
Okay. Okay, so we agree on that. So
my suggestion is Clemson and Iowa State.
Well, it would be Clemson or Iowa State, right? If we're keeping Tennessee up there.
You're right. Yeah. So.
Yeah, because it was 2 teams if we dropped Tennessee. It was 1 team if we didn't drop Tennessee.
You're right. Yep. You're right.
Yeah.
Yep. I would say Iowa State, undefeated Iowa State.
Okay. We've talked about it for too long, so I'm going with what you said.
All right.
Iowa State won their big out of conference game. This is a fact. I don't think they've played any of the really good Big 12 teams yet, though. That's my one hesitation with Iowa State right now.
They play West Virginia this weekend.
See, there you go. They might have a short stay in A, because West Virginia actually not bad. Didn't see that coming. Speaking of which, I think. Well, no, we need to knock some teams out of B tier first. We'll get to you, Mountaineers. I promise you, Mountaineers. We'll get there. Is there anyone in? Yeah, there's a lot of teams in B tier to move down. I think all of these teams are safe. 5 teams currently in B tier that need to at least have a conversation about demoting. We have Louisville, James Madison, UNLV, USC, and Michigan. Iowa State has a great collection of skill, talent, weirdly. Listen, wake me up when they play West Virginia, Utah, Kansas State, BYU, the other really good Big 12 teams.
All right. To me, UNLV goes down to C tier. Like they need a lot of help, and they don't get that automatic bid. There's teams ahead of them, like Notre Dame.
I don't believe Notre Dame counts for the automatic bid. The automatic bid is for a conference champion. Notre Dame's playing for an at-large at it. That's it.
Okay.
So the rule is the top 5 conference champions. It used to be the conference champions of, and then they listed out the Power 5 conferences. After the Pac-12 fell apart, they changed the language to simply say the top 5 conference champions.
I mean, it's Boise State is what we have.
Yeah, absolutely.
On our list there,
Boise State's my favorite group of 5
UNLV
team right now.
Goes down to C tier then.
100%. Are we doing the same thing to James Madison?
Yes.
Bye. Bulldogs? I don't know what they are. I think they're the Monarchs. I don't think I made that up.
What about Louisville?
Louisville's a good conversation. The Dukes? Are they the Dukes? Someone Google it. Not Kyle. He's busy.
This is 2 weeks in a row that Louisville's lost. They went from A to B. Do they go down to C tier? This is their first. Well, they only have one. Yeah, this is their first loss in conference. So
that's extra damning.
They're still alive. They're still alive here, but
yeah. I mean, good news for them is that they play in the ACC. Bad news is, as Kyle points out, this was actually a conference loss. You have both Miami and Clemson, who are both perfect in overall and conference schedules.
So let's stick with the ACC for a second here.
Please.
Mention Clemson and Miami. I know you don't want to.
They are the Dukes.
I know you don't want to hear this though, but I think SMU has to be moved up to B tier.
Kyle, if you take a look at the chart, for the YouTube people looking at the chart, I set aside 8 teams to the far left of C tier. One of them's SMU. I don't know why you said, I know you don't want to hear this. I literally already have them on deck. And also, I don't have West Virginia over there for some reason. I forgot about the Mountaineers. So let's make that 9 teams on deck for conversations about B tier.
So SMU, I think SMU should go up.
I don't disagree with you at this point.
Another team who's undefeated or has one loss. Hold on.
We're not talking about C tier yet. Now, I know. Are we just talking about the ACC? Is that how we're structuring it? Screw it. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes, go ahead. You said that. My apologies. ACC. My apologies. Let's just talk about the ACC.
One loss out of conference. They're still undefeated in conference. What about the Cavaliers of Virginia?
Didn't see this conversation happening at any point this year. I don't like. Do I like that logo? Elite JMU logo. When did they stop using that? I think I like that more than the full bulldog that they currently use. Bring it back. I don't disagree. It looks like a sailor hat logo, except it's a crown. I'm down for it. I'm in.
So Virginia. Thoughts on Virginia?
What's their schedule? What's their resulting schedule? Who have they beat? Who have they lost to?
They beat Wake Forest. They lost to Maryland. They beat Coastal Carolina, and they just beat Boston College. They have upcoming this weekend against Louisville, and then Clemson after that.
So they beat Boston College, which is good. They lost to Maryland, and Maryland's kind of bad.
That's their out of conference, which is why I said they're undefeated in conference here.
So here's what I'm gonna do for you,
Kyle. I'm fine keeping them in C tier, but
I'm gonna move them to the left of C tier. Okay. Maybe we'll talk about them again next week. I'm not moving them up to B tier at this time.
The only other one that I feel that we should talk about in ACC here, the only second team undefeated in ACC next to Miami, and that's Pittsburgh.
Well, Clemson's undefeated in ACC.
Well, let me rephrase that. Undefeated overall.
Yes. I think I said Clemson was undefeated overall earlier, which is not true. They're just undefeated in the ACC, to be clear.
Pittsburgh. They've only played one game in conference, but they are 5-0.
I do have Pittsburgh in the on-deck position.
I think at this point you do. You put them up in B tier.
Yeah, and they beat West Virginia, which at the time, or Pitt won that game, right? I'm not making that up. Okay. At the time, I don't think we knew that was an impressive win. But West Virginia's actually proven themselves to be pretty decent. Yeah, Pitt won the brawl. Yeah, backyard brawl.
Mm-hmm. And then they just beat North Carolina this last weekend.
North Carolina's hot garbage this year.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. I think Pitt undefeated. I think deserves to be up in B tier.
Yeah, I think we're at this point in the season. If you're a Power 5 team and you're undefeated, I don't want to say it's an auto bid to B tier, but it's not an auto bid. All right, Kyle. ACC. I think our last ACC conversation to have is Louisville. Do they stay in B tier or do we drop them to C tier?
Honestly, I'd say drop them to C.
I agree.
I'd say drop them to C.
2 straight losses.
Yep.
I agree.
All right, and the two teams here. Let's move on to the Big Ten then, because those last two teams.
SMU B tier. We already moved SMU up to B tier, unless you're asking, did you actually do that? In which case, yes, we did.
Mm-hmm. The other two teams to talk about in our B tier here, Jared, both of them in the Big Ten, and that's Michigan and USC.
Whew. Michigan and USC. I'm dropping USC. I'm just saying that right now. Minnesota's not good this year. Oh, because I was thinking a loss to a fellow B tier team may be grounds for lowering. We just moved SMU up to B tier. Oh, excuse me, may not be grounds for lowering. Louisville lost 2 in a row, especially in regards to the ACC, where I think winning the conference might be a necessity to get in. Losing conference games for ACC teams is a big deal. Like, they might get one at-large team, maybe. we're being extra harsh on, anyway. Yeah, let's go back.
USC, yes, I agree. USC goes down
Minnesota
goes down to
sucks.
C tier.
Minnesota's not a good football team this year. Nah. And by the way, their other loss, with its 2 conference losses, the other one was to Michigan, and we now see who everyone, well, we already knew. We've been telling people since February. Everyone else is starting to see who Michigan is. Kyle, quick Michigan aside. They're playing Illinois this week. Have you seen the spread on that game?
Say it, Jared.
Illinois is favored by 15. 15 points. That's where it opened anyway. I don't know if it's moved, but it opened at 15. Wow, indeed.
Now the discussion with Michigan here.
I mean, I'd take Michigan plus 15. I might too. I like Illinois. I don't know if I like them that much.
Well, let's get back to Michigan here. Do they stay in B tier with their loss to Washington, or moving down to C tier?
We have to remember Washington's not a good football team this year.
Nope.
I know that this was a redo of the national championship last year, but both of these teams have received insane overhauls since then. Neither of them have their quarterbacks. Neither of them have their head coach. Both of them lost an insane amount of talent. These are both bad teams. We've never had Washington anywhere near B tier this year.
Michigan goes down to C tier. Yes. Here,
Kyle, never interrupt me when I'm ripping on Michigan.
This is just a repeat thing. This is like 3 weeks in a row now, and it's going to be 4 weeks in a row when this time next week here. Michigan's offense is bad.
Yeah,
it's bad here. They barely broke 100 yards to Washington, which they should be able to throw over Washington here, but
Michigan can't throw against anybody.
They cannot. If you're
do they have a third quarterback on that roster?
If you're any Big Ten team left that plays Michigan this year, 8 in the box, 9 in the box,
11.
Every game, every play, 8, 9 in the box, 8, 9 up within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage. Every play. If you're not, you're hurting yourself.
The only reason why Michigan actually made a bit of a comeback in that game, they have Jack Tuttle. Yeah, they tried to.
10 for 18. He was 10 for 18 and didn't even throw for 100 yards.
If you watch that game, which I did, they brought in, Orgy was terrible. Washington got out to a lead, which was not super expected. I expect Michigan's defense to play well at the beginning of games. But Washington got out to a 14-0 lead. They bench Orgy, they bring in Tuttle, and for some reason, Washington was like, oh shit, Tuttle's back in. And then they took people back out of the box for some reason. And I'm watching it, I'm like, what the fuck are you guys doing? You don't gotta respect Tuttle like that. And then Michigan started ripping off some runs. Then they got smart and they put everyone back up in the box, and then they won the football game.
It was that first drive in the second half.
It was like one or two drives, yeah.
Well, the first drive was when Michigan scored that touchdown, but then after that, nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing.
So yeah, Michigan goes down to C tier.
All right, so
Army Navy, Kyle.
But before we get into that, let's take our second quick ad break here. Mentioned before, we'll say it again, thesloopcast.com, all of the links that you'll want to get to our Patreon, the Discord, YouTube, our merch store, Spotify, all of the lovely links, thesloopcast.com, your main page to all of your Sloopcast needs. So we'll go ahead and take that second ad break and be right back.
Oops, they went to the wrong screen again. I'm so good at going to the wrong screen. All right, Army Navy.
Army and Navy. Bump them up.
Okay. All right, let's do it. Screw it. Let's have fun. I don't know if either of them's really played anyone to this point, if we're being honest, but screw it. Let's have some fun. First time since 1945, I believe is the year that both Army and Navy are undefeated this far into the season. Now, I will remind everybody that in 1945, Army and Navy could draft people. They literally could get anyone they wanted. There was a draft on in 1945. Oh, that's a good point, Esquire. He goes, yeah, 1945 was a good year for the Army and Navy worldwide. They weren't just winning football games, they were kicking Nazi ass in 1945. Woo! That was a fun combo.
Wow.
Invented the air raid.
Army has only let up 49 points.
Wow.
Ohio State's let up 34. I'm just going down the list here real quick. Is there anybody who had less? Texas 35.
Or
Tennessee 47, Ole Miss 45.
One of the many vets in our Discord server, Mr. Stewart, down there in the chat, is enjoying the Army talk.
All right. Who else do you want to talk about to potentially bring up to B tier, Jared?
Texas A&M. Big win over Missouri. They
Absolutely.
lost to Notre Dame. It needs to be said that some of their struggles were due to not having their starting quarterback, who they got back this week, which could sit, obviously you see an offensive explosion from Texas A&M. Oh yeah, they got their quarterback healthy again and playing. I think it's going to be.
Yep, bring them up.
Yeah,
bring them up.
They're worth watching.
Yep. I see you have South Carolina.
That's what we call that in the industry a mistake.
Okay.
That's a mistake.
Rutgers with their first loss there of the year to Nebraska, 14-7, which that 7 points came late in the game too.
Yeah. I don't think really Arizona belongs there either, but we should talk about West Virginia.
Oh, West Virginia. They're in the Big 12 here. They beat Oklahoma State.
Take me home.
Oklahoma State.
Country roads. To the place I belong. West Virginia. Mountain
3-2. They are 3-2, losing to Penn State and Pitt. They don't like Pennsylvania at all. But undefeated in the Big 12, which is the important thing. That's the important thing here.
Who do they play next?
They play?
That's it. We talked about this already.
That would be Iowa State.
Yeah, I think that's a sneaky good game. I don't know. I don't know if the casuals know how good of a game that might be.
Yeah, you win this game, you go up in B tier. So they stay right there where you have them, right there. Next in line to B tier.
All right. I agree, but we're going to give West Virginia some flowers for sure. Anyone else I maybe forgot about, Kyle, that we should be talking about right now?
Let me go through my list here. So,
chat also.
What about Kansas State?
Iowa State, notably not Pennsylvania. Kyle, did you say Iowa State was in Pennsylvania?
No, I said they've lost to the two teams that they've lost to were in Pennsylvania. They don't like Pennsylvania.
And then, okay, I now understand what everyone's saying. Never mind. Shut up, Jared. Yeah, they don't play teams well in West Virginia. Iowa State's not West Virginia. Shut up. I'm dumb. Don't worry about it. We move forward.
Kansas State, they were on a bye week this week.
Yeah. I mean, they're in B tier. We're not moving them up to A tier by any means. Okay. Is there anyone in C tier that we should be talking about? Also, Texas Tech is surprising me. Should we be looking at Texas Tech?
Why should we be looking at Texas Tech?
Oh, because Odin said something. I asked the chat, is there anyone in C tier we should be paying more attention to that maybe we forgot about? And I saw Texas Tech's name in the chat. That's all.
They are 3-0 in the Big 12, 5-1 overall. Their own losses against a Pac-2 opponent.
Okay. Who are their wins against?
Some FCS, North Texas, Arizona State, Cincinnati, and Arizona.
Well, Arizona's a decent win. Cincinnati's not a bad. Did you say Cincinnati?
In Cincinnati.
That's not a bad win either.
You know, being 3-0 in the Big 12, I would say yes. I would say yes to up to B tier.
Didn't see that coming.
I did not either.
Didn't start the podcast today thinking I was going to move Texas Tech up into B tier. Arizona State not bad either. I'm gonna stop you on that one. I think.
I'm looking at other undefeated teams to talk about here, Jared. I'm going to go to the Big 10.
Okay.
Oh, never mind. We have them there. They're there. Never mind.
I don't know. You were talking about Indiana or Illinois. They are notably already in B tier.
Yep. We're good.
Yeah, I really wanted to move Rutgers up, but they won their game. Oh well. I think that's they lost their game rather.
I don't have anybody else to bring up here.
Okay. Anyone belong? Indiana versus Nebraska will be sweet. I agree. Anyone else? All right, M tier. Kyle, I think Oklahoma State was considered a favorite to win the Big 12 this year.
They were.
At least among the favorites. And they have fallen apart. We're talking full-blown Oklahoma State faceplant.
Started 3-0 to start this season.
Yeah.
And then their first 3 Big 12 opponents.
Bad
and they
losses.
lose all 3.
And a couple of them were ugly.
Well, hold on. Bad losses. Well, so they lost by 3 to Utah.
Right.
They lost by 22 to Kansas State.
Yeah.
And they lost by 24 to West Virginia.
I want to do it. Let's do it.
All right.
Oklahoma
high expectations, and they fell flat. Yeah, I would agree.
Michigan? Defending national. We knew Michigan was going to be bad. But the AP and apparently everyone else still thought they were like a top 15 football team. And
they still have them a top 25 team.
Yeah, because voters like uniforms. Should we wait until the Illinois game?
Yeah, let's wait.
Okay, let's wait. I have a feeling we're going to move him down next week. Yes. We're going to save that one.
We're gonna have some fun next week.
All right. Any other candidates?
No.
To move.
I'm looking here. I'm looking at all of the standings here. Who fell flat so far this season here?
I think we're
other than Florida State
and Oklahoma State.
Who else is like over to start the year that was really, really surprising?
I think that's it.
That's it. Yeah.
All right.
I think that's it. Yeah.
I think this is our tier list for this week.
Yep. So Ohio State, Texas, we have in the S tier. Then
Alone
A tier,
in the S
we have Georgia. Yep. A tier, we have Georgia, Oregon, Penn State, Boise State, BYU, Notre Dame, Miami, Alabama, Tennessee, and Iowa State.
The Big 12 getting 2 teams in there. Didn't see that one coming. Let's see if it holds up. Notably, just going to say this in case there's some new eyes this week. There has to be 12 teams in the top 2 tiers collectively, but there's no restrictions on specifically how many is in each tier. I was going to say something. Oh, yeah. And they're not in any sort of order. We're not saying Ohio State's better than Texas. We're not saying Alabama fell below Boise and BYU and all that. They're not in any particular order. We do sometimes order C tier a bit just to keep the better teams on the left to keep our... That's just for our own brains. That's not actual rankings. All right, Kyle, I think that's it. I think that's the end of the show.
Yeah, I think so.
Do you have anything in Kyle's corner?
Not really. I really don't. The Columbus Crew are moving on to the playoffs. I think they secured, nice. I believe the second seed. So
nice. Crew to the playoffs. We did our first Bleacher Report stream of the year, which that is still up on Bleacher Report. You can go check that out. That was a live stream we did. Additionally, we're going to be doing another Bleacher Report stream this week. And then right after the game, directly after the game, and we'll be doing yet another one after the Nebraska game. So you can jump on the Bleacher Report app. You can actually find us. I think you can find us by like searching Sloopcast. I'm not 100% sure how that works yet. They kind of have a quasi social media thing going over there. It's actually pretty neat. I've been, ever since they reached out to us, I've been checking it out. It's actually kind of neat what they're doing over there. But and I'm not being paid to say that, for the record. We are being paid to stream over there, for the record. I'm not being paid to plug the app. Those are my legitimate feelings. But yeah, just check us out on the Bleacher Report app directly after the Oregon game, and again directly after the Nebraska game. So those are some additional plugs at the end of the show, just to, I guess, do a quick Jared's Corner. All right, Kyle. We good?
We good.
All right, tonight's ending music will be by I'll just say an Ohio-based band called Annabel, Annabel. The name of this song is The Fortunate Ones. So with all that being said, I'd like to encourage everyone to drink local beer, listen to local music, and of course support your local podcasters. Once again, this is Annabel.